Good morning. This is Kathy with FVCC, and I'm here with the Workforce Flathead Opportunity Fair with Blake Ledenberg. His work here at FVCC involves first-year services, and he works with a variety of local high schools. But Blake, we'd like to talk with you specifically today, if we may, about how does a student pay for school? How does that happen?
I think that's the question that anyone who thinks about going to college starts with. I think for those who think they want to go to college, finances and how to pay for college remains probably the biggest barrier to actually attending school. I think for a lot of students, they look at a sticker price or the tuition costs of a school and go, "Wow, I don't think I can afford that." Even the relatively low cost of a school like FVCC can be daunting when you look at your financial situation and where you're at and what you feel like you have as free income to be able to spend. And so that's why when I meet with a student who's worried about that, I tell them to take a breath, that for the vast majority, and here on our campus, about 64% of students, that sticker price cost is not what they actually pay to the institution. And that's because of financial aid. And financial aid is a great resource for students to actually be able to attend school affordably. And so I'm excited to talk about this opportunity for students to attend school with you today. So financial aid, what is it? It's kind of this nebulous existence. And so I think that's what we're here to talk about today. And so there's different types of aid. The first category of aid is grants and scholarships. Grants are usually financial need-based, and I'll tell you in a little bit about how we determine your financial need. But it's free money usually from the government to be able to pay for school that you never have to pay back. And if there's a thing called the Pell Grant, and if you have a financial need that qualifies you for the full Pell Grant, it's going to be enough money to be able to cover the entire tuition of in-district tuition here at FVCC. So if you have high financial need, grants are a great way to pay for it. The other kind of one that goes along with grants and kind of the free money category of money that you don't have to pay back is scholarships. Scholarships can be awarded for a variety of reasons, whether they be academic success, financial need, merit, something is astounding that you've accomplished as a student in the past, or your own background before coming to school. And they can be awarded from private institutions outside of the college that you're attending, but then the institutions themselves also offer a huge amount of money to students every single year. Here at FVCC, in the school year of 2020, FVCC students received almost $1 million in scholarship aid to help pay for their schooling. And so you can see that a huge portion of that sticker price can be taken care of based on scholarships and grants. The next category of aid is kind of the one that's kind of tricky, and I think we may be able to get into a conversation about loans that could take almost a whole hour explaining the differences. The loans are the next category, and this is money that you borrow, usually from the federal government, to be able to pay for expenses. There's a few different types of loans. There's subsidized loans as well as unsubsidized loans. And so what that means is subsidized loans, while you're in school, the government pays for all of your interest. There's no interest accruing on those loans. And then there's unsubsidized loans, which come from the government, but while you're in school, you don't have to pay on them, but they are accruing interest. So on top of what you're borrowing, interest is going on to that balance that eventually you're going to have to pay off. And And so it's really important that when you look at a financial aid package and if you're being offered a loan, that you stop and you think about how much of this do I actually need? And I should definitely take the subsidized loans before I take the unsubsidized loans if they're offered to me, because at the end of the day, that means the amount of money that I have to pay back is going to be less. And I think we should move on, and we can talk about loans and kind of, I think loans, because of the student debt burden that is happening in our country, concerns a lot of people, and there's a lot of misconceptions about them, or this idea that it's their money to spend. So I think we can talk about that, Kathy, after we kind of get through this whole thing, if you want, or if anyone has any questions about it. And then the last category of financial aid that would be part of a financial aid package that we would award a student is work study. This is money that you can earn from your institution by working a student job. And basically this is cash that's given to you to spend on what you deem most necessary, whether that be housing or food or books or tuition, or a weekend trip with your friends. That's money that actually gets paid to you, but it's funded through the federal government and is included in a student aid package. I'll stop there, see if that made sense or if there's any clarification. That was a lot of information kind of right at the forefront about what financial aid is. And we can continue the conversation. I have more, but I'll just take a break here and talk.
Well, a couple of questions came up while you were talking, and I was a first generation student. No one in my family had gone to college before, and so I didn't even know where to start. So I guess that's my question for you is, where would a student who's thinking about going to, college or something after high school, where do they start to find out about financial aid, scholarships, etc.?
Yeah, that's the next thing on my list is
good.
Now here's all these types, but how do you get it, right?
Because it sounds it could be kind of intimidating, I think, at least from my own memory.
For sure.
Overwhelming feeling.
I think the first thing that students should do is fill out a FAFSA form. And I'll just show you, I'll share my screen and kind of show you where that's at and where you would go in order to start this process. But filling out a FAFSA form basically is a starting point. Most scholarship organizations want to receive the result of your FAFSA, which is this number called the expected family contribution.
What does FAFSA stand for?
Yeah, it's the free application for federal student aid.
Okay, it's online, mostly online.
I think you have to do it online now. I don't think they let you do paper copies anymore. Okay. And it's through the Department of Education, and you provide financial information, household information, to them, and it basically runs a calculation and reports to colleges a number that basically determines your level of financial need. How much help do you need to pay to school? So I'll go ahead and just share my screen for a moment. Okay. And if you were wanting to fill out a FAFSA, you go to FAFSA.gov. Right?
Okay. So the gov part is important, because my recollection at looking for FAFSA at some points, there are other things that might look similar, but it should have .gov.
Yes, .gov. If you type in .com, you're going to be taken to a place that's going to charge you. Now, if you remember, FAFSA stands for free application for federal student aid. Free being the key word. So if you end up on a website that wants to charge you to do your FAFSA, you're in the wrong spot. So that .gov is important. And you'll notice it takes you to a different webpage than FAFSA.gov. It switches you over to studentaid.gov. Right, new to the FAFSA process, you can go ahead and click start here. So there's a few things that you're going to need before you're able to fill out a FAFSA. And I'm not going to go into an actual FAFSA and show you different things. But what you're going to need is an FSA ID, right? That's how you actually log in. And you're not just given one. So if you've never done this before, you actually have to go in and create an FSA ID. And when you hit that create button, which I'm hovering over right now, it's going to take you to an entirely different web page. You'll have to type in your social security number, identifying information, and create what your FSA ID is going to be and create a password. Once you've created it, then you can come back to the screen and log in. So you're going to need the FSA ID. The other thing that you're going to need, right, if you were looking to apply for financial aid in the 2021-2022 school year, so the school year that's starting up in September, to apply for federal aid, you would need your 2019 tax returns. So it skips a whole year. So you don't need your 2020 taxes. So you don't have to rush to get your 2020 taxes done, right now. You just need to make sure that you have your the 2019 taxes that you filed last year available to you. What's nice about that, this system will actually speak to the IRS system. And so if you remember your street address that you filed your taxes, whatever mailing address you used to file your taxes, as well as the exact amount you either owed the federal government or you received in a refund, if you have that information, there's a part of the FAFSA that you can just plug it in, and it will automatically transport all of your data from the IRS over to your FAFSA application. It's called the data retrieval tool. It makes filling out the FAFSA really straightforward and simple to do.
Well, Blake, I wonder if I could ask you at this point. So once you make your way through this document, how do you know what you'll get, or if you'll get anything? What do you get, an email, or how does that work?
Once you finish a FAFSA, as part of the FAFSA, you actually submit it to, you have the opportunity to submit it to the colleges that you're interested in. Every college has a code, a FAFSA code. You don't have to know those codes. You just have to know the schools that you're looking at, and you just search by location or name, and it will upload the codes for you. But you're right, when you finish the FAFSA, there's nothing on the FAFSA application that's going to tell you what you get. It's going to give you a number that's called the EFC, which is an expected family contribution. And that's representative of basically how much money the government thinks that you can afford to put forth to your school. Now, it's important to note that that number is not necessarily what you're going to have to pay for school. It's just representative of your financial need. When you plugged in codes for the schools in your FAFSA, when you submit the FAFSA application, your application then goes to all the schools you entered. So if you entered FVCC, when you hit submit, FVCC would then receive your financial aid application. From there, FVCC's financial aid office, if you were admitted as a student, would then look at your FAFSA and determine what aid you are eligible for. And they look at the EFC and okay, they're eligible for a Pell Grant, or they're eligible for Perkins loans, or subsidized loans, or unsubsidized loans. And then they have this overall pot of money, and then they put this package together and they send you an award letter. And when you get that award letter, that is actually what you will get in financial aid if you choose to accept all of it.
Well, and I have a follow-up question on that then too. I know sometimes you can be eligible for a certain amount of loans,
Sure.
but you don't have to accept that amount, right?
No, absolutely not. And I don't encourage people to. This is a moment of pause and reflection. I talked about the student loan burden, right? Student loan debt has now surpassed credit card debt as the highest form of personal held debt in the United States. And so it's a large number. And a lot of that is, I think a lot of times students take more than they actually need. And so taking a moment, pausing, thinking about how much you actually need to pay for school and your expenses, and only taking out that specific amount of money. And like I was saying up above, the difference in subsidized and unsubsidized loans, right? If you don't need all of your loans, take subsidized first and maybe not take the unsubsidized. It's going to save you money in the long term.
Well, and Blake, I'd like to just ask, or let's say I don't know how much it's going to be to pay back a loan. I'm not sure. Is there someone that you can talk to? Is there a resource? Like how much are my payments going to be if I take out this much in a loan? Is there any resource? Just so
Sure.
students can plan ahead.
There's a lot of loan calculators, right? And loan calculators basically need, what interest rate, which on federal student loans, you can actually find the interest rates that are being offered to you. And you need the loan repayment term. That's the piece that's really hard, is there's a lot of different options for loan repayment. There's standard 10-year plans, there's income-driven plans, so you only pay a percentage of your income. There's pay-as-you-earn plans, so there's a lot of different ones. If you wanted to know the standard plan, it's based on 10 years of payments. So basically take the loan amount, take the interest rate that's given to you, take the loan term, which would be 10 years. And as long as you were taking a subsidized loan, you plug that information in and it'll tell you in general what your payments will be and how much you will end up paying back. I'm not sure if the financial aid office has a tool that's helpful for students. That's a great thing that I should probably ask. And I don't know if you're aware of one.
But students can connect with their offices, the financial aid office, with those questions and
yeah,
at least get a resource.
If they either have the resource themselves or they know where to find it. And I think that's an important thing to take away for anyone and everyone who's listening to this. Financial aid offices on campuses are here as resources for you, even before you start taking classes. If you need help filling out your FAFSA, give them a call. If there's something that comes up that's, it's an interesting situation, you have an interesting financial situation, call them and they'll be able to tell you how to approach the FAFSA, how to enter the information. They'll also be able to walk you through the different aspects of your aid package and explain to them, okay, this is what this means and this is what that means. And if you take out this loan, you're going to be paying interest, and if you take out this one, you won't until you actually have to start paying it back. They're extraordinarily helpful, and if you're thinking about the school, they'd be more than willing to help you.
Well, thank you, Blake. And we have about 2 minutes left. I do
Sure.
have one follow-up question.
Sure.
You mentioned scholarships. How do students find those, or prospective students? Where are they?
So there's a few different ways that you can access scholarships. The largest pot and the easiest pot of money is actually through probably the institution that you're planning to attend themselves. Mm-hmm. Here at FVCC, students have to fill out one application to be eligible for the hundreds of different scholarships that we award through FVCC itself. And so I would encourage students to start with the institution that you're planning to attend and figuring out how you apply for their own scholarships. Then there's hosts of other scholarships that are from private enterprises. I would start with local companies and businesses. If there is local scholarship opportunities available from other private enterprises, the financial aid office will usually know about them and post about them. And so definitely connecting with the financial aid office at whatever institution you're trying to attend to will be most helpful.
Terrific. Well, I think our time is about up. So thank you so much, Blake. Blake is the first year services program coordinator housed at Flathead Valley Community College. I'm going to put up a slide here. If people do have financial aid questions in general or specific, I'm going to put up FVCC contact information, as well as Blake's if you have particular questions.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yes, and all of these videos will be housed on the Job Service Kalispell YouTube channel, as well as the Kalispell Chamber's workforceflathead.com site through the summer. So thank you so much for being with us today, Blake. We appreciate your information. And I wish I'd had that years ago when I went to college. So thank you.
Of course, Kathy. Thank you.
Take care.